It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
So folks, how many times has someone say to you, man, I'm stressed out, I'm just stressed, okay? Well, today, folks, we're going to talk about stress and how do we manage our stress. This is an interesting show. I know it's going to be because I'm going to learn a lot from it. My guest today is Dr. Michele Kowalski, who is she's at the Occupational Health Services at the Health and Wellness Center in Hazleton, and we're going to talk about stress management. I'm excited about this show, Michele, because everyone says, I'm stressed out, I'm stressed, okay? Well, tell me about yourself.
Well, I live in Mountaintop. I have 3 kids, husband, dog, couple cats, the whole 9 yards.
What kind of dog do you have?
A Schnauzer.
Schnauzer. We have a little Bichon, yeah. How old is this Schnauzer?
He's only a year old.
A year old?
So
Okay.
a cute little thing.
Get along with the cats pretty good?
Somewhat, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
But certainly you can see our lives are busy, sometimes stressful.
Yeah,
but
3 children?
3 children. They're mostly grown. My youngest is a senior in high school. My oldest is doing some postgraduate work for a PhD in immunology. And my other son is finishing at University of Scranton, going to go to medical school next year. So busy lives, but we do manage to squeeze in some fun too. And we have a lot of extended family in the area as well.
So so tell me about your background. I mean, how did you get involved with this division, stress management? What part of medicine does this fall into?
Well, I've been fortunate to work in many areas of medicine, mostly centered around primary care, which certainly, stress involves a lot in primary care. For a while, I did family medicine. I started that from the start, did traditional family practice, worked in some military bases. Then I did emergency room, urgent care. The past several years, I've been in occupational medicine, which has also branched out the fields of public health, travel medicine, evaluation and treatment of substance abuse and addiction medicine. So I find myself never bored.
I could imagine.
But what I do love is occupational medicine because it's preventative medicine. And that's where you probably have heard there's more and more with changes in healthcare reform on prevention.
That's a key issue. Prevention is extremely important, and there's so many opportunities in all areas, okay, whether it's health, whether it's heart, lung, diabetes, or whatever. There's so much information that Lehigh Valley Hospital, the network, has available for people, and they should take advantage of that. Before we get into the details of the stress management, which I think is extremely interesting, because as you're going to probably indicate how stress could be related to a lot of things in our lives, okay? When you are dealing with a group in occupational and you're dealing with a company, have you found, you go in and have you found how much is the success rate, or can you measure the success from your presentations or when you're working with different groups?
Yes, I think we can. And the good thing with occupational medicine, it is a subspecialty of preventative medicine. So we do a lot from primary prevention in terms of looking at the environment that workers are exposed to, whether that's ergonomics or stress levels in their environment, to tertiary prevention. If somebody does get injured, how can we prevent them from getting any worse? How can we keep them working? How can we lower their stress during this time? So we get to do a lot in occupational medicine with preventative medicine and specifically stress too. Another great thing we can do now is through the wellness programs. We can really reach the whole group by doing some wellness interventions, whether that's biometric screening, checking your blood pressure, checking your sugar, to exercise initiatives or nutrition choices. And that helps the individual. Certainly people spend a lot of time at work, so they may not have time to go to their primary doctor and see what their blood pressure is. But what's really neat is that we not only identify it for the individual, but then we can look at the whole group and say, okay, this many people have high blood pressure. Maybe it's a high stress environment. Maybe we can intervene and help them not only lower their own individual blood pressure, but help them along the way by addressing that in the environment.
Well, you're so right, because sometimes if you go into a stressful situation, your blood pressure increases, okay? When I go to the doctor, my blood pressure always increases because I'm a nervous wreck. I'm a big baby, of course. Now, the talk about stress, okay, we all experience it to a degree. We're going to put a chart up, okay, and I want you to explain what we're looking at and what would be the main causes of the stress and how they relate to that, okay?
Right, so stress is universal. We all have it, and it's been linked to so many things from, heart disease, high blood pressure, to, decreased immune function. But if we didn't have any stress, our lives would be pretty boring. We'd never be challenged, we'd never grow. So some stress is not a bad thing, and that's what this chart illustrates. Basically, in the middle there is the optimum stress. You want just about that amount because you can see on the left axis here, performance goes up, when you're stressed to some extent. As the stress level goes even further, though, unfortunately, you can get exhausted, can lead to more pathological things like anxiety or panic, even breakdown. If you don't have enough stress, you're underloaded. You're kind of lazy, inactive, laid back. So you want that optimum level. And the problem is we can't always pick, where we are on the bottom here.
That's what I was going to say. It's like regulating stress. How do you regulate your stress area?
Right.
Okay. So take me through this. Okay. So if I'm inactive or laid back, okay, you say that's an underload. What do you mean by that?
What you want to do, again, you can't always control what's coming at you or what you need to do in order to reach your goals, for instance, in an education or a job promotion. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do is step back and look at how you perceive it. It's very interesting to us in medicine, how people perceive things, pain or stress. An ankle sprain for somebody may be barely something worth notice, where to others it's completely disabling. Mm-hmm. So stress is much the same way. It's all about how we perceive it, not so much what is happening as what we think is happening to us. So the main message I want to get to you today is that the goal is not really to eliminate stress. That would most likely be impossible, but rather to just take a step back and look at how we are perceiving it so that we can respond to it rather than just automatically reacting.
All right, so when a person who is high-strung to a degree or they're in a workplace, and the unfortunate thing, Michele, is that I forget the percentage, and maybe you know this, how many people go to work that don't really like their jobs. At one time, it was a high percentage number, okay? And I don't know if that number is still that high, but that's sad. I mean, that's if you say, I really don't like going, I don't like my job, but I'm there. I'm sure that has to work on your stress to a degree, okay? All right, so if I'm in that kind of a workplace, okay, where it is stress-related, what are some of the helpful hints you could tell me how to not let them get to you, because it's going to affect your health? Am I correct?
Right. It can if you're perceiving it negatively. So you really do have to take a step back and realize, why you're doing this. You're right, Sam. I do see, a lot of people that aren't happy with their jobs or aren't happy with their coworkers. But you have to realize these are things you can't necessarily control. You can control your own reaction to it. And the first step in, in doing that is to realize what happens when we're stressed. We get a fight or flight reaction, and I think, we've all heard of that. And that served us very well, from an evolutionary standpoint. We had to run away from a dinosaur, fight a saber-toothed tiger. The epinephrine is released, we're ready to fight or run away. Unfortunately, today, it's not so much those type of stressors, but, a cell phone in your pocket ringing or just some constant low-grade demands being placed upon us. So too much of this fight or flight is a negative thing for us, so we have to realize it's happening. I heard it likened one time to like troops in a barrack. And we have this whole ready army of, neurotransmitters and hormones and mechanisms ready to help us survive. But just like troops in a barrack, if they're released to a battle that they can't fight or that they can never win, then they're going to become demoralized, bad things might happen. Same thing with us, our neurotransmitters or epinephrine, if it's continually released into fighting something we can't eliminate, then bad things can happen. So we have to realize that this is happening, and then also perceive it a little bit differently. Not so much as something, oh my goodness, my heart is racing, or I can't breathe, that sort of thing, my head is hurting. Just realize that's our body preparing us for a challenge. And something really interesting happens on a physiological level when they look at this. If they looked at people who thought that these things were good things, my heart racing and I'm getting ready for something, their blood vessels actually dilated as opposed to constricting. So you can imagine, the implications for health. This may be a really good thing if we can perceive stress in a good way.
Okay, so there's many factors here. A factor is that anticipation. Sometimes people, we're going to go to work, and I know I'm going to get upset today. I know I'm going to get stressed. This person I'm working for is going to drive me crazy. Or we're going to visit our families, and I know if we can get there, Uncle Jim is going to be on my back, and whatever. So we have this anticipation, and sometimes I think we make a bigger problem than really what it is, because we're already expecting the worst. Okay, what about people who have those kind of attitudes?
I think you do, again, just have to recognize what you're thinking and what you're doing, and take a step back. Mindfulness has certainly gotten a lot of press recently, because there's a lot of research coming out about it.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Just
Okay.
realizing what you're thinking. It's mindfulness. Basically, the definition is just not so much, having a conversation with yourself, like we tend to do in our minds, but just realizing what thoughts are occurring. For example, you said, Uncle Jim is going to talk to me.
Yeah.
So
they're anticipating it, and all of a sudden, I'm stressed out before I even get to the place. Okay?
Right.
Which is not good. Okay.
Right.
Now, when you go to the workplace and you're talking to these people, we're in the communication business. We communicate. That's what people are listening to you today. They're communicating. Hopefully, they're going to learn something, how to release some of their stress. And we're going to talk about what stress is healthy, and I can appreciate that. But how much of the if you're having a problem with your spouse or your friends or people that you don't want to be, or in your workforce, okay, can we at one particular point in time say, look, what has bothered me about my job? What gets me upset? How do I communicate, okay, with either my superior, my coworker, or myself? I mean, what are some of the things you have to tell us about that?
And really, it's just about taking that time to not converse with yourself, not go through why are these reasons, but just what am I feeling? When I'm faced with this particular thing, how does my head feel? How does my stomach feel? Take the time to breathe. There's an exercise called the 20 breaths, and basically you just concentrate on your breathing for 20 times. Takes less than 2 minutes. So often in our lives we won't give ourselves that time. We automatically react to whatever stressor is coming at us. We really need to create a time when we can take 2 minutes and just learn to respond. What would be the best thing that I could do? Maybe even not even try to think of what can I do? It's just let it happen. Don't do anything. See what's happening.
A person once told me, a very successful person said, when you're upset or you have a major decision to make, something that happens, do not react immediately. Wait at least 24 hours so you could at least get a better idea of what you're going to do about that particular problem. But you find out moods. When a person is under stress, okay, their moods change immediately. Everything bothers them, okay? When a person's happy and a person has a pleasant mood, it's not as bad, like the kids or the work, etc. Because you enjoy what you're doing, and you'll accept problems a little bit better when you're in a better mood and you don't have that stress, okay? So it's either what comes first, the chicken or the egg. What do I do? So what do you suggest?
Right, and that's what we were saying about the reactivity. You're right, there's some people that react better to stress versus others, but even day to day, we can find ourselves not react well one day and react well the other day. Sometimes when one thing goes bad, it seems like everything will go bad after it. So that's where you really have to take, if you don't have 24 hours, even 2 minutes, and just take a step back and say, hey, this is what's happening. Just let it happen and realize the more I do, maybe the worse it's going to get. Step back for a minute.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, 24, I'm talking about like major things. I'm not talking about minor things. You're right. I mean, if you're in a workforce and something happens, but addressing the situation. Now, sometimes, Michele, stress could be hereditary, okay? My mother is stressful. My mother was a worrier. I mean, she lived to 90 years old, but she worried about everything. I mean, she just had to worry about everything. Okay, are you okay? Blah, blah, yeah. And this is honest to God. One day she said to me, she said, Butchie, I'm worried. I said, what are you worried about? She said, I'm worried because I really don't have anything to worry about.
Right.
Okay. I said, Mom, did you hear what you just said? Okay, but, people who grew up in a depression, people who grew up, with a different kind of mindset than we have today, they're really careful about what they're doing. So the stress level was higher. So when it comes to hereditary, is there such a thing as hereditary stress?
To some extent, but a lot of it is learned. Anxiety is something that very successful people have. Your mom, for instance, it helped her to get things done, helped her to raise you.
Yeah.
So, it's not a bad evolutionary thing that we've developed. It's on this curve. If we don't do enough, then we're not reaching our potential. But the key is to not let it take hold of ourselves and go too far with it. So again, just to recognize that it is happening, to get the time to breathe. In terms of how we are and how we're made up, we can change that with something called the mindfulness. They've actually done research where parts of your brain develop differently when you practice mindfulness.
And what's that? How do you practice mindfulness?
Taking that time to breathe, to basically be aware of your surroundings, to just realize what's happening in your body, focus on a sound for a while as opposed to the thoughts coming through your head.
How about prayer?
Prayer ties in well with this. Mindfulness isn't tied to any particular religion, so any religion can do mindfulness.
I mean, so some people, when they start the day, and is a prayer to put themselves at peace or whatever before they approach these different things. The same thing in the evening time. Prayer is no matter what religion you are. I would think it's a key to help a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. There's research that spirituality does help with stress reduction, whatever type of spirituality that is. As well as the things we know about exercise, good nutrition, making sure you get enough of the endorphins through physical activity or eliminate the real sugary foods. But yeah, the spirituality is big. Sleep is also a big way we can prepare ourselves to combat stress. But people ask me, well, I lay in bed and I can't fall asleep. That's where something like mindfulness or prayer can really help. You don't keep trying to fall asleep, you just try to quiet your mind. And that, even if you're not completely asleep, it does have benefit in terms of your health.
Are you familiar with Dr. Newberg?
I'm not.
Philadelphia, he's a psychiatrist, but he's a Jewish doctor. He's a great person. He's been on my show via phone many times. And with his Catholic patients, he has seen, and he advocates this, that the recovery of these people who pray the rosary, who will pray, or etc., he has seen a great improvement, because of their, the stress level, etc., and having that stuff. So when we come back, I'm talking to Dr. Michele, interesting folks, Dr. Michele Kowalski. She's at the Occupational Health Services at the Health and Wellness Center at Hazleton. Let's see, there's a phone number here we can give you to call if you, at the center, of course. It's 501-6600. We come back, let's talk about how the stress affects our health, and how do we regulate it to a degree. There's so many things. I think we are our own worst enemies sometimes, aren't we, Michele?
Agreed.
We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest today is Dr. Michele Kowalski. She is an occupational health services at the Health and Wellness Center at Hazleton. Remember, folks, 24/7 ssptv.com. You can watch all of our shows, and my email is sam@ssptv.com. And folks, don't forget, we're high definition, so if you're watching us on channel 13 in Hazleton, 513, you get to see us in high definition, so we're giving you 2 for 1. Also in the mountaintop in the Wilkes-Barre, Pittston area, as you know, we're on weekends with our health shows. But anything you want to learn about health is you go to Lehigh Valley Health Network, go to their website. There's a lot of information on there as we're talking about preventive medicine and stress management. Now, how we talked about hereditary. How do we lessen our stress? Because I think, as we said, anticipation, people cause themselves more stress than we really have. How many times have we expected something and we're all excited enough after it was done, say, it wasn't really that bad. How many times that has happened?
Yeah, I heard a funny quote recently of Mark Twain, I think, that said, I've had so many problems in my life and most of them never happened. So
exactly.
It's often the case.
And here again, I'm a victim of that, because when I'm getting ready to go to the doctor, my blood pressure goes up. I don't know, because I'm saying, I got this. I'm a hypochondriac to a degree. But so how do we lessen our stress? What's our lessons here?
There are the ways that we talked about, certainly good nutrition, exercise, avoidance of alcohol, drugs, all those things that we kind of know we're supposed to do. But the biggest thing too, like I was saying, is just to really realize what's happening to us when we are stressed. We're programmed to react, and that's not always a good thing. We're not always supposed to fight the things that happen to us today. We're mostly supposed to let them happen and then respond to them appropriately.
Don't you think we should, if we're in that stressful situation, I always like, if we have a concern, I always say, let's identify what is the specific thing that's making you upset. What is the specific thing that's causing you stress, okay? So here you come in, Dr. Kowalski, and say, okay, how do I begin to identify, how do I lessen the stress that causes me to come home and scream at my spouse or the kids and the neighbors or whatever, okay?
Right. I heard a good mnemonic called RAIN, and it kind of makes sense. When we're stressed, it feels like it's raining on us. But RAIN stands for a couple things. The first R is recognize. Like you said, identify it. Say, okay, well, this event has made me very much under stress. My boss yelled at me, or I have this project due. Recognize that that is affecting you. Then A, accept that it's happening. So many times we want to push it away. Maybe I can get out of this project or get back at this boss, get rid of him. Accept that it's happening. It's not something you need to change. Then investigate. What's it doing to me? Is my heart beating faster, my muscles tightening? How is it affecting me physically? Just realize what's happening. And then N, non-identification. Try not to take it too personally. A lot of times we also come to quick judgments. This is a bad event or this is a good event. Sometimes we don't know until we see the bigger picture, of weeks, days, months, what's going on. And then just treat yourself and others with compassion. Try to, give others the benefit of the doubt, yourself the benefit of the doubt as well, and realize that, you'll most likely be able to handle this.
Like anything else, I think if you're forming habits take a while to form. There may be one or two things you could do. You certainly can't eliminate all of your stress, and some stress is good, as you said, okay? What's our good stress here?
Basically what you perceive to be good stress. So you have to look at what's happening to you. And
this is good stress.
Right.
I want this stress. This is good for me.
Try to think of why it's happening. Perhaps because you're in this job to get a paycheck. So it's something you're putting up with so that you can provide for your family, or you're doing this project to further your education or your career.
I always, you try to put things in perspective, even myself. My wife was a registered nurse, and she's always telling me to put things in perspective. We get stressed out for everything, okay? But, if I had a problem with my foot, a couple weeks ago, and complaining about it, and we were away, and, here we saw, a person who had an artificial leg, okay? I think it was a wounded soldier, and I'm complaining about my foot like a big baby that I am, and here's a person doesn't have a foot. So I mean, you start thinking what you really have in life and how you put things in perspective, okay? And maybe they're not all that bad, but maybe it's not all that bad that you have a family that you could go and visit. Maybe it's not all that bad that you have a spouse that cares for you. Maybe it's all that bad that at work times, you have to provide. Maybe those things are all that bad when you see what's the alternate, okay? Am I correct in saying that?
Right, and it's amazing what people can grow to put up with or do well with even. I heard another thing, the only difference between an ordeal and an adventure is your attitude. So it's really about attitude, and again, knowing what this means for you. When you're stressed, just really take a step back. Remember, who you are and why you're here, and
so
where you're going.
If you take one thing at a time, Michelle, okay, if you know these things cause you these stresses, sometimes you could eliminate them, or do not get in a face-to-face with somebody, because again, if it's work-related, and the percentage of people, again, I don't know that statistic, probably if I Google it, it'd tell me, but I know it's a high number, how many people get up and really don't like to go to their job, okay? So productivity is affected, their health is affected. Now, when you're talking about people who are stressful, okay, high blood pressure comes in. What are the dangers of these bad stress, okay? How does it affect their health?
There's so many things. Certainly blood pressure is a big one, cardiovascular disease. Too much stress can lead to heart attacks. Things like anxiety, depression, panic attacks to the point where you can't really function well. Immune function, you don't fight off colds, infections, even cancers as well if you don't manage your stress. There's a lot of negative health effects, not so much again from the stress itself, but from what we think of the stress. So it's all about the perception.
And here again, the healing process. I think again, and correct me if I'm wrong. If you're in a good frame of mind and you have a good attitude, and if you have a good approach to different things, I think what's ever wrong with you, I think the healing process is a lot faster. Like I said about Dr. Newbert saying the Catholics, people he had who were patients who had surgeries, those people who said the rosary, who prayed, their healing process was a lot higher than people who didn't have any kind of things to meditate on or whatever. Okay, so if I could, correct me, if I could lessen my stress, the bad stress, okay, and whatever I may have, can it help me physically?
Yes, definitely. And I wanted to get back to what you said about the prayer. There's actually some studies that show that the same thing happens in Carmelite nuns that pray a whole lot as people that practice mindfulness on a regular basis. And that's, again, the part of their brain changes. Their fight or flight part, the amygdala actually gets less strong, and the frontal cortex gets more strong. And that's the part that's involved with decision making and executive functioning. So it does positively impact your health if you can learn to do this.
I think it's critical, and there's always these timeouts, okay? Just relax a little bit, don't react like you said. Time out, address the problem. If I'm going to work and I'm having a problem at the work, try to communicate and find out identify that problem. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah. And that's the thing, you can do most everything, but you can't do it all at once either. So that's the other thing to remember is that, prioritize, and keep things on hold until, you're ready to handle them.
So you available workforces play, like for example, if you could go into different companies and talk about stress management, etc.
Yes, we're doing a lot with the wellness programs now, and stress management is certainly a big part of that. As we talked about, it affects so many things. So wellness is big in all of occupational medicine. We're finding that it not only decreases health problems, but improves productivity. The bottom line of the companies are actually raised if they can keep their employees healthy.
I was telling you about motivation. Remember I told you the story prior to the show, and if you're motivated to enjoying what you're doing, etc. A friend of mine told me many times, nobody has a monopoly on ideas, okay? So no matter what lifestyle, no matter who you are, okay, my father always said, treat people the way you want to be treated, okay? And if you say something that's not kind about somebody who you know it's not true, don't get upset when someone says something about you that's untrue, okay? So you start learning the simple things. I mean, little simple things like that just to relieve your stress. Michele, it was nice talking with you, okay?
Thank you, Sam.
I wish you the best, okay? Tell your husband I was asking about him, too,
will.
okay? Folks, Dr. Michele Kowalski, 501-6600, Lehigh Valley Hospital Network. Just go there. All our health shows are there. Tremendous amount of information. Don't forget, we're on HD channel now, 513 in the Service Electric Cablevision, of course, channel 13, and the Wilkes-Barre area, channel 92 on weekends. We'll see you next time.